Hi, everyone. We're going to start. So welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Miriam Brand. I'm at Suite Solutions, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the Intelligent Content for Manufacturing webinar given by Joe Gelb of Suite Solutions and Steve Morse of easyDITA. So we're going to be talking about first. Joe and Steve are going to introduce themselves and Suite Solutions and easyDITA. We're going to be talking about some of the knowledge distribution challenges that are specific to manufacturing companies and some of the benefits of intelligent content for those companies. In that, we're going to be kind of delving into information management across the many departments. We're going to be looking at specific workflows, information flows within manufacturing companies. And finally, some use cases of dynamic and personalized content for multiple access points that are more relevant to manufacturers. So I'll pass it on to Joe.
So my name is Joe Gelb. I'm the president and founder of Suite Solutions. Welcome, everybody. At Suite Solutions, our vision is to enable you and your organization to engage your customers by providing quick access to relevant information. So we're going to be diving into all kinds of technical details about intelligent content, and many of you are using XML, and those of you who are using XML or are thinking about using XML, so you know there's a lot of details and to be dealt with in tools and transforms and everything else, but it's always very important to keep in mind that as we go through this process, the goal is really to provide our customers with better, quick, and more relevant information. We help companies primarily with XML-based publishing solutions, authoring solutions, and we've been blessed with a large variety of different customers in different industries, and we're able to bring that experience to bear to help you all during these webinars, and hopefully we might get the chance to work with some of you following this. I'll pass it over to Steve.
Okay, so hey, I'm Steve Morse. Welcome, everybody. You know, I thought I would go a little bit into detail about some of my resume, just because I thought it would be instructive. Some of the challenges that you guys are facing as manufacturers, trying to manage information in a large multi-departmental organization. I had a number of roles at Xerox, starting in '99 as in the product documentation department. And back then, we created our documentation after a product was, for the most part, finished, right? Done with development during that 6 to 12-month period before we launched it. So that process was kind of old-fashioned these days. It was sort of the opposite of, agile. And adding complications at Xerox was a lot of our products that we were documenting were actually engineered and manufactured in Japan. So translation was a huge hurdle. But back then, the way we handled it was they would just send us machines when they were finished, and the product support teams would tear it down, they'd put it back together, they'd figure out how it worked, and then we would interview those SMEs and write the documentation in English. So clearly a process that was inefficient and unsustainable in the long run. It cost a lot of money, but worse than that, it took too long, right? So back then, in 99, 2000, we really started to see how the web was going to change everything. I remember we set up an online bulletin board for the technicians in the field who were servicing these machines, and straight away we were surprised to see how quickly they adopted it. Right, they started answering their own questions, solving their own problems. It was dynamic and interactive in a way that our traditional documentation just wasn't, and it was also efficient. Right, they only documented what they needed to know, right? The problem set of the different devices. It was, it had this immediacy, and it was cheap. So yeah, I think we all realized at that point that was where information development was going to be moving, as the web really enabled a whole new way of doing things, and a better way of doing things. So Xerox began to experiment with different web technologies. I moved into product training, and we bought an XML-based system for e-learning. And we're working with that. I moved on. In my next job, I managed internal communications for the field services organization still. And as part of senior management, I really started to see how the silos in this organization were limiting the flow of information, really hurting us in how we could be agile and get stuff done and well and quickly. So, and sharing information was such a chore. I mean, we had a document management system. I'm sure we had our own version of SharePoint. But, as soon as they launched it, immediately there was like 9 million documents, I remember, at one point. So it's unusable, right? Everything's just, unless you were a part of the team that created the document, you couldn't find it, you couldn't use it. So it really didn't help. And then finally, I moved on to more of a sales support role, writing sales proposals. And again, we had the same issues of not really having access to the technical documentation that we were spending so much time and effort creating, and we captured information the same way. I got on the phone and talked to salespeople, SMEs, support teams, and wrote it down. We recreated everything for every purpose, and again, not the most efficient system. So if you've been around since '99, like I have, you probably identify with some of those issues. And the exciting part is that out of those problems began to come like a vision for what information sharing could be and could look like in the 21st century. So that's a lot of things that we're going to talk about today. Joe, if you want to change the slide. So what are the needs that are driving these changes that I'm sure you probably were all experiencing? We need to introduce new products quickly. We don't have the luxury of 6 to 12 months to launch like we used to. And so for that, a solution would be to document products at the same time that they're being developed. But for that, you do need a system in place that people can share the authoring of this content. It doesn't just happen, right? And the system has to be one that engineers are comfortable using, or else you're going to be doing a lot of copying and pasting. So with the global challenges, we need to market to your products globally, which means you need to very often localize and translate your documentation. But at the same time, you're sourcing your products globally. Like Xerox was getting engineering from Japan. Well, I'm sure many manufacturers are starting to get a range of content contributors globally. And again, they need web access to information. It needs to be immediate, and you need, of course, a system to localize that content. And finally, as I discovered in my career, with all these different hats that I wore, giving the customer a consistent brand experience was very challenging when you had so many authors, and some of the solutions, some things that can help are like with easyDITA CMS, having a single system that is authoritative and having people author it and have it be accessible not only by customers but also internally to make use of that and to reuse that across departments. So that's I think the ultimate goal is to do a lot of things that you're going to hear from Joe, right? Is to make your content living and responsive, kind of the way that bulletin board was for those service technicians, and one that you can view anywhere, right? Multi-channel output. You can see it on your phone. You can embed it in the user interface. That's the vision, and that's what's really going to, we feel, give you the competitive advantage going forward. And so that raises a lot of issues. How do you do it? And for that, I'm going to toss it back over to Joe.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So, okay, we're going to talk now about the benefits of intelligent content. A lot of the goals and that Steve mentioned that we want to all get to. One of the I guess facilitators of that is intelligent content. A lot of as successful manufacturing companies, we all understand, especially those of us on the call, understand how important information and information flow is, and making that information, that content more intelligent is one of the primary, I think, primary ways that we can make the whole organization more efficient. So when we talk about intelligent content, a lot of you have heard about this before, but we'll go through that. One major aspect of content that's intelligent means it's not limited to one context, technology, or output. We want to be creating content that is reusable, that can be viewed on many different types of outputs and different types of devices. We want it to be semantically structured. The idea meaning that structure has meaning, so we can easily know what's contained in those documents. Once we know how that information that's inside those documents, we can use that information to push information to the right people, or allow people to pull that information that they need to them. Now, the structured content also allows you to publish to multiple channels, whether it be print, web, on device. I've stopped using the word mobile because I think mobile is so ubiquitous these days, and mobile really can mean either I'm viewing something on the web, on maybe a screen that's a little bit smaller, right? Or the content's on the device, and the device might be the mobile device, or it might be on my laptop. So, I think these days everyone's been talking about mobile, but really, I think in a lot of ways, mobile is another screen size, another operating system. Okay, and one of the questions really becomes, okay, which device is it on, and what are the implications of that of being on that device? So we talk about moving from unstructured content into structured content. So a lot of us are used to seeing a PDF file or printed documents which are formatted, and the formatting infers structure to someone who's looking at it, but for a machine or for a publisher, the formatting does not infer structure, or is not really useful to be smart. So inferring structure basically means taking the content that we used to be formatted, or the structure used to be based on the formatting, and inferring structure from that and creating archetypes of structure we would be calling information types or content types or topic types, and splitting them out, and then moving through a process which converts that content from unstructured format such as FrameMaker or Word or InDesign or HTML into more structured content or XML content where the tags are semantically meaningful, okay, where we can see what things are. So instead of having a bulleted list and on a printed page, we can say there's a set of steps, okay? Or instead of having some random numbers on the page, we can say that's a part number, and that has meaning. Intelligent content also means content is reusable, meaning allowing us to manage topics in discrete units, topics or pieces of information that are trying to answer one question, and like Lego blocks, able to take those topics and either use them on their own, or to build them and assemble them into multiple collections or deliverables or publications. Now, the ability to assemble those content into different collections is a big value add to content, but it also reduces localization costs, meaning if I'm writing once and then using it in multiple applications or publications, then that's going to reduce localization costs. And we've seen that a lot of companies will actually finance their migration to intelligent content or structured XML content just using based on the savings that they'll be getting from localization. One of the things we'll be talking about towards the end of this presentation in more detail is the idea of having the content more findable, distinct, and focused. And like I mentioned in the beginning, I think that's really the end game, what we've been talking about more and more, the idea of customer experience, self-served content, dynamic web, dynamic content, the idea being making content more findable, more focused, more distinct. And one of the ways that we do that is taking the content and tagging it with metadata, okay, which basically means opening the content and stamping it in a certain way with meta information, or by classifying it using some kind of taxonomy, which is kind of like labeling something. If you imagine the Dewey Decimal System, if you ever, the libraries these days, you walk in, you look at a computer and a screen, but a lot of the libraries, they have books, and the books have little tags on them. They're using some kind of a taxonomy by labeling them. And the idea of taxonomy is labeling content. So with structured content, that's XML, was often able to label that using metadata, but with unstructured content, such as maybe video or pictures, content that's coming from other systems other than technical documentation, graphics, images, things like that, we can classify them or label them using a taxonomy. And we'll talk more about how a taxonomy can be very useful, and I would say critical as time goes on, to to glue together all these various types of content that we'll have in our organization. So if we talk about the types of departments or variety of different groups that we have inside of an organization, particularly in manufacturing organizations, which tend to be not necessarily so small. So there's a lot of different what we call silos of information. Okay, so one silo, which where a lot of us are familiar with, is a content management system, CMS. And often we use content management systems for technical documentation, for marketing people, learning, training content, whether you're using something like SharePoint, which can hold a lot of different types of unstructured content, or whether you're using a DITA or XML content management system, or both. So the idea of a content management system is to have a single point of entry for accessing content. We're having a single repository for various groups to be able to contribute to that repository and share content and share reusable content as they put together their own deliverables. In addition to the content management system, we have a lot of companies, we have a CRM system, or a customer relationship management system. And CRM systems have evolved over the past couple of years, whereas the CRM systems used to be primarily for managing who are my customers, right, and what they've purchased from me, maybe how I can contact them. So CRM have largely morphed into systems that also handle case management for support, okay, whereas support agents will use a CRM system like Salesforce or other systems to actually field cases from customers or potential customers, try to access information of how to help those customers in knowledge base articles, and then send information to the customers and try to help them to use the products more effectively. So CRM systems have evolved quite a bit, and the usage of them have evolved quite a bit over time. PLM systems, or product lifecycle management systems, are often used by engineering teams. So whereas documentation people use CMS to organize their content, so PLM systems are often used by engineers to organize their content based on what's called a bill of materials, a BOM, which is basically a tree that represents the product. And what happens often is, and probably a lot of you in the audience are aware, is that the engineers will tack on or information about the product or different parts or aspects or assemblies of the product. They'll take documentation and pin it to different parts or different aspects or leaves in that product tree. Okay, so often what we'll see is information flowing from content management system into a PLM system. We'll talk about that as we move through this presentation. And knowledge portal also we've seen a lot of organizations where they'll have on their website a knowledge-based system or knowledge portal where customers are able to get in there. Okay, so what we're trying to do here is join those silos by providing a single point of access for customers. Often these days you'll go to a website, maybe your own website, and you'll say, okay, I have a link for documentation, and you'll have another link for communities, another link for support, another link for knowledge base. And customers or users of our products don't necessarily know where to go. There's all this content on our website, and customers are still complaining they can't find stuff, and that's really pretty frustrating. So what we want to try to do is, from a content point of view, try to create some kind of a thread among our content where we can share content among these different silos, and from a tools point of view, try to create a single point of entry where customers, whether there be end users or service engineers, maybe our partners or even our salespeople who are trying to sell our content, sell our products, allow a single point of entry to find easily the particular content they're trying to that will help them to achieve their particular goal at that time. Now, a taxonomy, we'll talk about a little later, is really the glue that can hold all that together. Okay. Now, we talked about structured content before and intelligent content, and a lot of people will tell you, well, problems will all go away when we convert all our content to XML, we put it into one big gigantic fat content management system, and we're all sharing content and we're all reusing content and life's good. But I think that in the reality, the reality of the situation is that the chances that that everyone in the organization is going to embrace that one fell swoop, structured content, XML content, is probably the chance of a snowball in a very hot place. So I think what we try to do in these organizations is try to implement structured content wherever we can, implement taxonomy wherever we can, labeling, and try to move towards a situation where we're able to access content in a consistent way and get the benefits of structured content wherever we can and wherever it makes sense. Okay, when we talk about CMS as being a centralized repository, so often we mean that tech doc people and marketing people, often more and more learning and training people are moving towards structured content and storing that content in the content management system. A good CMS will have a SME review where engineers, other people in the organization can go and review that content through some kind of a workflow. Okay, and that content can be published to various formats, to whether it be help, online help, or PDFs, or more and more mobile formats, EPUB, ebooks, etc. Like I mentioned before, more and more we're talking about and seeing that folks are publishing their content into a knowledge portal, where the knowledge base is not just a knowledge management system that's being used by some organization on the website, but where content is really flowing from the content management system for tech docs and marketing, and that our tech docs is not just holed up in PDF files and web help files somewhere on our database or on our website, but rather they're accessible in the discrete units and the focused units that we spoke about before. Okay, what I want to do is take a little bit of a break here. A lot of folks, especially folks that are moving into XML and moving into formats like DITA, have issues with saying, well, how can I get good quality output from my XML content? We saw before that moving to structured means basically stripping out all the formatting. Well, how can I get good quality formatted output? So I'd like to just take a break here and show an example or a couple of examples of some PDF files or that were created from XML content. So, and this is available on the websites. I downloaded these just before so this is an example of a PDF file that was created from DITA from a company that makes water filtration systems. And you can see that this is content that was created in DITA, managed in DITA, and then translated and then put into very highly styled multilingual foldouts. Okay. Here's another example from the same company, the same content being delivered in a manual. I'm going to wait for the thing to catch up there. So we see similar content, DITA content, which is being reused for viewing in the manual format and also being translated and being published in very highly styled, high fidelity foldouts that can be printed. Here's another example of another company that's using DITA to publish their content. Also this is from Garmin. Is also from their website, content that's created in DITA, published into PDF, and also published to web help and to mobile devices. Okay, so there's companies that are able to get very highly formatted content from the structured content. Here's another example of a company who creates, again, I downloaded this from a website, content that's coming from a company that makes flow meters and other types of equipment, and also generating content from DITA into PDF files and also online help and other formats. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slides. Okay, we spoke about CRM, and I'd like to talk for a minute or two about how an integration can be between CMS and CRM. So often the CRM system, like we mentioned, is being used for tech support and for creating support articles. Systems like Salesforce will allow you to actually go into the system and create support articles to answer cases, and then you can link those support articles to various cases, and you can reuse those those articles and those cases for other customers who are having similar problems. Now the problem is that when you talk to a lot of support organizations, they say, yeah, well, we're creating our own knowledge base articles, and if you ask them, well, you know, are you using the technical documentation? A lot of them will say, well, you know, we know the documentation's out there, but it's in PDF files, or you know, they're an online help, and we don't really know if they're updated, and we can't really find this stuff. So we're just, you know, we're just kind of making our own, or we're finding some content from PDF file, and we're just copying and pasting into our own knowledge base articles, and that basically creates a lot of disconnect and a lot of content that's not updated, and again leads to a situation where we're investing a lot of money in our company to create technical documentation and good quality documentation, and it's not even being used by people in our own company. So one way we've been seeing is that content can be published to a knowledge portal from XML into a knowledge portal that's tagged up with metadata and classified using taxonomy. The tech support people are able to get into that knowledge portal and search for and find content much more easily based on exactly the products, the versions, the configurations, and the activity that the customers are trying to do when they come across the problem. Okay, so in this way, the tech support people are able to take better advantage of technical documentation that's built in a more topic-based way. On the other hand, we can have a situation where knowledge people are you know, they have access to the customers, and they're seeing issues the customers are having, and they can be funneling information that they're seeing into this content management system. So the technical documentation people, training folks, can take that content and incorporate that into their own documentation, and thereby making the documentation more updated and more useful. I'd like to talk a minute about content management systems and PLM. Again, PLM stands for Product Lifecycle Management. That's often what the engineering folks are using. So integration or connections, intelligent connections, I guess, between CMS and PLM is very interesting in that, on one hand, published documentation that's saved is saved in the PLM according to the BOM. So content that's created in the CMS can be published and then saved in the PLM. Now, in a lot of organizations, we hear, you know, in technical documentation, folks come to us and say, you know, we want to go and move to DITA, we want to move to XML, and our IT people or engineering people say, well, you know, we can use PLM for documentation management, right? Why don't you just use the PLM system? And the PLM system is kind of like fitting like a round peg into a square hole in the way that PLM is based and structured on products, right? So you have a product, versions of those products, you have engineering documents that are specific to that product, you might have engineering changes that are specific to that product. But when we talk about intelligent content, we're talking about content that's built to be reused across multiple products, across different versions of the product, different configurations. So using the PLM for a content management system very often defeats the purpose. What we really want to do is to have a system that's built, a system like easyDITA or other types of content management systems that are built for component content management, that are built for applying metadata and taxonomy to content, and reusing that content and publishing that content in a way that's specific to the various products and the configurations of those products. Okay, so the workflow of taking content, publishing it from the CMS, and then attaching it into the PLM for storage or for accessibility for engineers is a very, very powerful paradigm. And the flip side, we can also use the PLM to trigger possible changes in tech docs. For example, as there are engineering changes happening and as engineering documents are being updated, okay, based on taxonomy and based on how we're tagging up our content, if we're using a comprehensive or a consistent taxonomy across our organization, then we can actually we can use changes in engineering to trigger workflows to update technical documentation. Okay, and that can reduce a lot of legwork of technical documentation, people trying to guess what's happening in engineering and try to figuring out and extract information from engineers, but rather, scouring spec sheets, but rather have a better window into what's happening in engineering. So now we talked about the power of taking these different silos and linking them together. Let's talk about contextual relevance. And contextual relevance really means, how to personalize that content by role, meaning who's looking at that content, and by goal, what are they trying to achieve. And contextual relevance and personalization can mean either allowing people in a self-service type of way, getting into a knowledge portal and saying, okay, this is what I need, this is who I am, this is what I'm trying to do, okay? Or pushing content to folks based on who they are and what you would like them to do, whether they be a service technician or whether they're a customer and you want to be able to push the most relevant, updated content about the products they own or about the activities that they're doing and push that to their mobile devices, etc. Okay, so personalization basically means considering who needs to see that content, right? Or the customers, partners, etc. Trying to consider what are they trying to accomplish. Are they doing installation? Are they doing a troubleshooting? Are they doing an upgrade? Okay. Taking into consideration what equipment they're using. Okay, not just throwing them a manual that's for a whole series of products and making them kind of weed through a big PDF file and trying to find out what's relevant to them, but really just based on what particular version of the product they're looking at, what information is useful for them. Taking into consideration how they're viewing the information, whether it be on a laptop, whether it be on a mobile device, whether the device has network access. Okay, meaning a lot of folks, a surprising amount of people tell us that their technicians and often their customers do not have access to the internet. Okay, so throwing content up into a knowledge-based system is very nice, but if you're on a tablet and you're going into a facility that doesn't have network access, so we need to have solutions for that as well. Because here's an example. Let's say I'm a field service engineer. I need to install a certain type of equipment using a certain protocol, and I'm using a particular type of device, right? And I have no access up to the internet on my plant, right? So I want to be able to pull together information, the most relevant updated information, whether it be technical documentation, whether it be knowledge articles that were created by support people, whether it be videos, okay, training videos. I want to pull that information together and I want to download to my tablet before I go on site. Okay, once I go on site, and I went and I figured out how to solve a tricky problem, I take out my smartphone or my tablet, take a short video to illustrate the problem and the solution that I was able to arrive to. When I get online, I want to be able to write up my own how-to article and upload the video so my colleagues, either in the field or my colleagues at home base, can make use of the experience that I had. Okay, so what I'd like to show you is as a quick demonstration of how intelligent personalized content or contextual relevant content can work. Okay, so here I have a prototype of a system that was built by a manufacturing company. When I get into the knowledge-based system, okay, I can do a free text search like a lot of systems allow me to do, but I can also do an advanced search. And the advanced search is based on facets or subjects or labels that are, or tags, right, that are based on this taxonomy that I thought about how I catalog my products and how I catalog the components and aspects of my products, and how do I catalog who are the people who are using the products and what they're trying to do. So I can go in and say, you know what, I'm using a certain product or a certain version of the product, let's say, and I'm trying to do a configuration, and I'm trying to do a configuration on a disk array. Okay, so let me go and do a search. Now once I do a search, I'm going to find a list of results that are relevant to the particular product line that I'm trying to work with, and to the particular type of activity I'm trying to do. Okay, and I'll see content that came from manuals. I can see content that may have come from the support site, from the CRM, and I can see content that came from videos. And right from here, I can go in and either fine-tune my search, or I can go ahead and look at the content. Now the content, since the content is being authored in a way that's usable in distinct, discrete topics, so from here I can really just find the topic I'm looking for, click on it and view it, okay? Or I can close that topic and go on to another topic and view that topic and read that, okay? So that's an idea of how we can use taxonomy or classification to be able to allow your customers to drill down and find the most relevant content. Now, we have customers who've done studies. They say, okay, well, when we talk to our customers, some of our customers say, yeah, I like to use my tablet, and I like to go on site, and I like to do a quick and cool faceted search. And some of their users say, no, I want to open up the manual and I want to leaf through the manual, right? So if I click on the and open the entire manual, okay, so I'm able to go through the manual, kind of like an online help, and I can go through that manual and navigate through it. But once I've created my content in an intelligent way, I can actually use that information to filter through the content or through the manual itself. So in addition to being able to filter through a manual, right, I can go ahead and say, I have a large manual here. Let me just see all the content in the manual that's relevant to configuration. And by doing that, by clicking on configuration, it will automatically go and filter down the table of contents and only show me the content in the manual, in the structure of the manual, and in context, but only the content that I'm really interested in doing now. I don't want to see all the stuff about installation. I don't want to see all the stuff about troubleshooting. I just want to see the stuff about configuration. Okay, and maybe I want to see all the content that's really relevant to a particular version of the product. Okay, so that's how we can use intelligent content, classification, and metadata to go ahead and provide an experience to allow people to drill down and find the content that's most relevant. Now, we talked about before the idea of folks wanting to be able to take content and bring it with them offline, right? So say I find some content, right, and I'm going to be doing some configuration here, and I want to be able to take that content and add that to my own personal collection of content. I'm going to click on a link here that says add to my docs. When I do that, it's going to add that content to my own personal collection. Okay, and once I add content to my own personal collection, then a dynamic, intelligent content system will allow me to go and publish that content on the fly. Okay, so as I go into my own personal collection and see my own content that I've put together, I can go ahead and choose some of that content, maybe organize it, okay, and then go ahead and publish it to an EPUB and download it to my tablet or my cell phone, download it to an online help type of file, or publish it to a PDF. Okay, so there's an example of how we can really get the benefits of intelligent content from the standpoint of authoring content in discrete chunks, from the standpoint of reusing that content, from the standpoint of classifying that content to be more easily accessible by our customers and our users, customers internally, customers externally, and allowing our customers to actually, in a self-service type of way, pull together content, whether it be technical writing, technical information, whether it be videos, whether it be knowledge articles, okay, pulling all of the content together and being able to use it in a more effective way. So I'll turn the presentation back over to Steve Morse, who will tie everything up together for us.
Thanks, Joe. Very interesting stuff, right? Interesting to me partly to think about how some of the things that began back in 99, 2000 I was sharing earlier are really coming to fruition today, and the technology has caught up to the vision to some extent. Hey, we're going to take questions, so I did want to give you a chance. You'll see in your control panel there's a questions tab, so you can ask them there, or you can ask them via chat, and Joe and I will do our best to answer them. Wanted to quickly review some of what we just heard. So you hear the needs. to sum up maybe what the solution would be from a technological standpoint, obviously there's people and process to also bring into this, but it seems like some of your basic needs are for an online system, right, where you can give access to information, you can allow collaborative authoring of information, you can bring down the silos to some extent inside your organization, and you can deliver it to your customers in a variety of ways. You need a system that will help you manage all of this, that will, like Joe said, will enable you to add the taxonomy and the metadata that really makes your content intelligent, and it allows you to then give it to people in a way that's relevant, up-to-date, useful. You need an open information standard. We talked about some of the different systems inside your organization that you want to pull information from and combine and use and reuse. Well, that works best if you're using an open information standard like XML DITA,
Steve,
which will...
I think we have a question,
yeah?
Steve.
A question here, what do you mean by CMS? Can you give a concrete example of a CMS? And is DITA one form of CMS?
Yeah, so DITA is not. I was just speaking about DITA as an information standard, right? So it's a set of rules, really, about your content, how things are organized. It, to some extent, has a taxonomy in it, out of the box, if you will, and then you can add to that to suit your purposes. So DITA is the standard, information standard. So the CMS, like easyDITA, is the system that contains all that and manages it and makes it publishable. So it's that system that you can author in, you can share and collaborate in. It's got very often CMS will have review functionality so that people can take a look at what's been authored and make sure that it's accurate, make sure that it's up to date, and then approve it for publication. And it goes live to your customers at that point. And then publishing it. The DITA is XML, so it's XML individual files on a XML database. So to publish it, you need to transform it into whatever it is, PDF or HTML or XHTML, and a publishable format. So that's part of what a CMS will help you with. And then Joe's technology that he was talking about, maybe I'll pass it back over to Joe because he adds some functionality that isn't always out of the box with a CMS.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, before I go into that, we have another question about the slides and the recording.
Right. The slides will be available on SlideShare, and the recorded webinar will be also available through the site. I'm going to send a link to everyone as soon as they're up. So hopefully in the next couple of days you'll have links to both the slides on SlideShare and the recorded webinar.
Right. So regarding the tools, I think we have another question about taxonomy and how we can link all that all together. So I had mentioned that the taxonomy is something that can link all these tools together. And if we think about each of the various tools, whether you talk about a content management system like easyDITA or SharePoint, or if you talk about like Salesforce that has its own tagging mechanism for taking articles and tagging them, and if you talk about something like Jive, which is a community forum that has its own tagging system, and a PLM system also has its own tagging system in a way that the engineering content is tagged up based on a taxonomy of the product and the assembly of the product and model numbers, etc. The idea is that through the organization, if we create a taxonomy or a consistent way of how we look at our products, the versions of the products, types of roles of our users, types of protocols, components, all the ways that we or our customers would want to access various types of information. We look at that in a comprehensive or consistent way, then we can apply that taxonomy to all the various tools. Okay, so we're tagging up the information in Salesforce or the CRM in the same way as we're tagging it up in Jive, as if we're tagging it up in easyDITA or any other CMS system. and the knowledge-based system as well. So the idea is that as the content flows into the one portal, such as the portal that I showed you before, a SuiteShare portal, then we're already tagging up the content in an intelligent way that will be more easily accessible and more consistent. So we have a question. Can you publish online help from tools like Flare? We're looking to publish PDF help and help from mobile devices. And can you do version control like in SharePoint? So it's very interesting. There's Flare is a tool that's a help authoring tool, and you can definitely use Flare to create content basically in HTML and publish that into online help. There's a very interesting discussion about the use of tools, proprietary tools like Flare, as opposed to using tools that support a standard such as easyDITA. easyDITA is an open standard, and there are many, many different tools such as easyDITA and a lot of other types of tools that support the standard for managing that content, authoring that content, publishing that content to various formats. So the idea of using a tool that's more standards or complies to the standards gives you a lot more flexibility going on to manage that content, to export that content, to reuse that content in more standard ways, and to publish content to other formats. These days we say mobile, 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 but if you think about 3 years ago, like the idea of about 3 years ago, the idea of publishing to a tablet was like brand new. I mean, people weren't even talking about it that much, right? So who knows what's going to come out next year? People are talking about publishing to Google Glass for technicians to be able to more easily have technical content in front of them while they're servicing products. So what's going to happen in the next few months, next year, and the next 2 years? Keeping yourself in an open standard has a lot of value going forward. So yes, the idea is you definitely can publish a variety of formats or output formats in a tool like Flare, but it limits you as to the connections you can make to various tools and the keeping to the standards, which gives you keeps you more open in the future to be adapting to what's going to be coming down the pike.
I would just add that so Flare obviously is a tool that works for a lot of people. It's got an active user base, and but there is some risk in going with a proprietary system. Another thing about Flare is that it can have a steep learning curve. So if one of the goals that you have is to open up collaboration to a wide group of people, including non-technical people or including engineers, people with limited time and limited desire to really learn a new tool, that's going to be a little bit of a drawback with some of these systems that maybe aren't so easy to use.
Right.
Great, so thank you everyone. And as we said already, you can expect to get a link to the recorded webinar and also to the slides on SlideShare. So thanks a lot for coming, and thank you to Joe and Steve for presenting. And be in touch.
Thanks. Bye-bye, everybody.
Yeah. Bye-bye, everybody.